What's up, guys? Welcome to Whiskey. I'm Jeff. This is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey, and every once in a while throw in other whiskey-related content. Today, I've got a list for you guys. We're going to be going over 7 whiskey brands that got better with time. So, it should be a fun one. Stick around. Okay, so we're doing something positive today. I think it's pretty easy these days to fall into like negativity and cynicism when we're talking about the state of modern whiskey, especially if we get into like prices, that kind of thing. But there are things to celebrate. There are things that are improving with time in the world of whiskey. And it's that positive side of things where I want to focus our energy today because I try and be a pretty positive guy. I'm a big fan of joy and happiness and rainbows and unicorns and bunny rabbits, all that stuff. In fact, on weekends, you can often find me frolicking through meadows. I occasionally sing. I'm just a big fan of like laughter and smiling. In fact, my mother says that I have the type of smile that can light up a room. Anyway, the point is it's very easy to think of brands that have kind of gone downhill over the years and they're just not putting out the same kind of whiskey that they used to. And I thought, okay, that's easy. It's easy to focus on that kind of thing. And there are plenty of examples of that. But what about the positive? Turns out there's quite a few whiskeys that over time have actually gotten better. All of these brands make an appearance in today's video. It's a ranking video, so it goes from least favorite to favorite. I do actually like all of the brands on this list, especially now that they've improved, but we've got an algorithm to please, so it's a list, it's a ranking, you know the drill. Also, for each brand, I'm going to put a bottle up on the screen, and that bottle will represent what I think is the brand's best current release. So yeah, that's it. That's the premise. As usual, guys, I've got a mystery pour in my glass here. It's a fantastic whiskey. Stick around to the end of the video and I'll share with you what that is. Your hint for today is this is a lowland whiskey, and it's the only lowland whiskey that I've scored over 90 points. So best of luck with that. As always, guys, if you'll kindly leave a like down below, that would be greatly appreciated. Now let's kick off the list. Start off with an honorable mention, and that is Glen Scotia. Glen Scotia put out a new line last year in 2023 with 2 non-age-dated whiskeys and a 12-year-old, and it replaced their old line, which looked like this. Now, the old line did have its fans, but it wasn't great. And this new line, while granted not great, is still better. It's a step up, and I think they're headed in the right direction. I've only tried 2 of the 3. I've tried the 12-year-old and the Port Soy. If I had to choose between the 2, they're pretty close, but I'd probably go with the Port Soy. Either way, yeah, the brand is getting better, and the bottles look cool. Coming in at number 7, we've got Royal Broca. Now, these guys reinvented themselves a couple of years back, and it was a complete turnaround. Their old line, for the most part, was like 40% colored, chill-filtered whiskeys, and then from there, they just went fully craft, pretty much out of the blue. Everything they put out now is 46% non-chill filtered and natural color, which of course is nice to see. Now, this brand is not cheap nowadays, and they do lean pretty heavy into the sherry side of things, so it's not something that's going to be for everyone, but they are undeniably much better. It's a big step up for them, and I like their whiskeys. I recommend the 12. At number 6, I've got Glen Allan. Now, this one does seem pretty obvious and pretty easy, but I'm not talking about pre-2017 Glen Allan, which is back then, like, no one had heard of it. It was basically blend filler. In 2017, Billy Walker and friends bought it out and they started turning things around for it. But no, my comparison is not pre-2017. It's from the time they took over to now. In that space of time, it's improved. Which makes sense because at the beginning, they were just slapping incredibly active cask finishes on the distillate that they inherited from the previous owners. And their whiskeys were very loud and very sweet and very casky. Granted, they still are today, but they are coming into their own. They've had more time to tinker with the whiskey and make it their own. It's spent more time in the casks of their choosing. Now, it is still a very sherry cask dominated or wine cask dominated whiskey, but it is getting better. The 15 is one that I used to just not like at all. I was not a fan. I bought a bottle recently and it is much better. That's probably my go-to from their current lineup. They do have a really solid 10-year-old, a really solid 12-year-old. This is a great brand if you're a sherry lover. And even though that sherry-forward, cask-dominated style of whiskey is not my go-to style, there is no denying that the brand has seen good improvements in recent years. And yeah, I'm really excited to try the Meikle Tour line, which is the newest stuff that they put out. This is distillate from Billy Walker & Co. Hasn't made it to my market yet. Regardless, that's a tangent. Coming in at number 6, Glen Allan. At number 5, I've got Glen Scotia. Now, depending on how long you've been on the scene, you may or may not remember the old Glen Scotia line. Their current line looks like this. Their previous line looks like this. But before that, disco cows. Now, to be fair, this is not like a recent change. I think they switched over like a decade ago, so it's not new. But when they repurposed their line, not only did the disco cows disappear, but we did see a big jump in quality. Now, I know the Victorian is probably the most popular thing that they've got going on right now, but my favorite current release from them is this one right here. It's an 11-year-old white port finish. It was released for the Fischl last year, 2023. Good stuff. Yeah, Glen Scotia, man. For me, it's hit or miss, but they do make really good whiskey. And while on the whole, I do think the brand is in a much better place nowadays than it was back then, I'd be lying if I said I don't miss the disco cows. Not necessarily the whiskey inside, but the bottles themselves. Like those cows could fucking party. Number 4 is Glen Turret. They reinvented themselves. The old line looked like this, and they were very underwhelming whiskeys, 40%, not very interesting. I would always walk past them at the shop, but the new line is good. Nowadays, they're giving us fully craft whiskeys. They do peated stuff, sherried stuff. I have not tried them all yet, but so far the highlight for me has been the 12-year-old. Their style of whiskey is actually a little bit dirty and rugged and old school, which I think adds to the charm. But yeah, the brand is just a far cry from where they used to be. Not to mention, we have these Art Deco bottles, which I think is a big step up from that. And yeah, just on the whole, it's an interesting brand. Try the new line if you haven't yet, Glen Turret. Number 3 is Homan, which is another one that makes sense because it's a relatively new distillery. They only opened in 2005, which means with each passing year, they have older stock to play with, which means you are going to see some gradual improvement over the years. And even back in the early days when they just started releasing bottles, their stuff was already good. I love their house style, but nowadays, better. The bottle that they probably get the most love for is this one right here, the Saneg, probably the Loch Gorham not far behind that. My personal favorite from them currently is the 100% Islay release. This is an excellent whiskey. I'll be reviewing it soon, so stay tuned for that. One thing I would like to start seeing more of from them, though, is age statements. To their credit, they did put out a 16-year-old recently, and I was really excited to try it until I saw the price. They were charging £200 for a 16-year-old whiskey, which is bold. Anyway, we're trying to stay positive today, and if we start talking about prices, that is not going to send us in a good direction, so we'll just leave it here. Homan has improved over the years, and good for them. Okay, my pick for number 2 is one I think a lot of people will not have seen coming. I think a knock has gotten better. Now, if you look at bottles like the 12-year-old, it's pretty much the same as it always was, but for the older stuff like the 18 or the 24, better. I do have bottles of both on the go right now, and they have improved with time, and they're in a different place than they were a few years back. The 18, for example, I reviewed it previously on the channel, and while I liked it, I said it was kind of a chameleon. And what I mean by that is sometimes I thought it was great, sometimes I thought it was okay, and my reaction to it would depend on, I guess, my mood, my palate. It didn't give me a consistent experience. My newer bottle is much more stable, it's much better, it's a beautiful, rich, complex, balanced whiskey. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. The 24 as well, also one that's gotten better over time, so it is nice to see that change. Knock is a great brand. Check them out if you haven't. My pick for the most improved brand and my current favorite among this lot is Tobermory / Ledaig. Now, this is a brand that has improved vastly. Both the unpeated Tobermory and the peated Ledaig, both of these are much, much better brands now. I still remember the old releases from these guys. We had a Tobermory 10, we had a Ledaig, I think that one was also a 10-year-old, and these whiskeys were rough, they were unbalanced, they did not have good flavors, they were dirty, but not in a good way. And I mean, look at the brands now. They're fantastic whiskeys. It's like a phoenix rising from a pile of shit. Both brands are doing very well nowadays. Tobermory is doing well. I think Ledaig is doing much better. It's basically a legend in the peated whiskey scene nowadays. So an incredible transformation, and yeah, we're getting really good whiskey from these guys. I'm sure you've heard of them. I'm sure you've tried them, but if you haven't, check them out, especially Ledaig. All right, so that was it. That was the list. Whiskey brands that got better over time. It's always nice to share good news from the world of whiskey. Now, if I missed anything, if there's another brand that slipped through the cracks that I didn't include on the list that should have been included, let me know what that is down below. Or if you've got a bottle that used to be less than impressive and you think it's doing much better nowadays, I'd love to hear what that is. Finally, if you stuck around to find out what the mystery pour is here, as I said, it's a lowland whiskey. It's the only lowland whiskey that I've scored over 90 points. What I've got is Bladnoch 11. Now, I have reviewed this before on the channel. I reviewed the 2021 release and I absolutely loved it. What I've got here is the 2022 release. Still love it. Bladnoch is a very unique brand and I think they probably deserve more attention than they're getting. If you have any kind of preconceived notion about lowland whiskeys being dull and safe and characterless, this stuff will open your eyes. It is not a character that's going to be for everyone. It's a very unique and probably divisive character, but it is characterful, it is interesting, and personally, love it. Now, this was relegated to a mystery pour. This new line came out a few years back. I had never tried it prior to that. So the general consensus is, yeah, it's a much more interesting whiskey nowadays, but I can't confirm. Anyway, that's going to be it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. If you want to help out the channel, I've got the Patreon. Otherwise, like, comment, subscribe. And of course, I want to hear from you. Looking forward to reading your comments down below. And I guess we'll see you next time.